Why did no one intervene when she was shoved the first time? When the sound of bone against concrete echoed down the corridor, and everyone pretended not to hear it. Kira Brennan didn't ask herself that question out loud. She just adjusted her stance, felt the familiar heat rise behind her eyes and swallowed it back down. Emotion was noise. Noise got you killed. She had learned that lesson long before Camp Gray Rock, long before Nevada dust and joint service politics and men who mistook silence for weakness. The sedan rolled through the gate like any other vehicle and she stepped onto the base without ceremony. No escort, no announcement, just another name on a clipboard. That was the point. She wanted to be overlooked. She needed them comfortable. Gray Rock wore normalcy like a disguise. Clean walkways, faded slogans, routine that dulled attention. Places like this bred confidence, the kind that curdled into entitlement when no one challenged it. She had been sent here because two women already had. Both gone now, transfers processed, complaints closed, silence achieved. Kira carried a rucksack that had crossed oceans and deserts, and a notebook that had survived salt water and blood. This mission wasn't kinetic, but it was no less dangerous. Targets didn't know they were targets, and she was alone. The first days passed quietly, too quietly. She ate alone, logged times, watched reflections instead of faces, heard comments that were never meant for her ears but always landed close enough. The laughter, the dismissals, the casual cruelty wrapped in jokes. She wrote everything down, every time. That was how you won wars that didn't look like wars. She noticed them before they noticed her. 3 Marines, one loud, one loyal, one silent enough to be dangerous. The pattern was old, familiar, predictable. They tested boundaries the way predators always do, first with words, then proximity. She let them feel powerful, let them think she was just another support sailor playing operator dress-up. The tattoo slipped once, just enough. The trident on her wrist was a crack in the illusion. It changed how they looked at her, not with respect but with challenge. That was worse. Respect could be negotiated. Ego couldn't. By the time Friday came, the air felt wrong. Pressure building like weather before a storm. Kira had already chosen the corridor without choosing it. She mapped it days earlier. Cameras down, lighting poor, isolation easy. She walked anyway. When the shove came, she absorbed it. When the kick landed, she tasted blood and copper and memory. Pain registered clinically. Tooth fractured, lip split, no dizziness, no panic, just confirmation. This was escalation. She documented before she reacted. Photographs, timestamps, blood on concrete, evidence that didn't need interpretation. Then she walked away while they stood frozen, men who had crossed a line and didn't yet understand the consequences. Medical treated the injury, paperwork treated the truth. The rumor mill spun faster than the investigation. It always did. She cried. She exaggerated. She couldn't hack it. The story protected them because it always had. But documentation doesn't care about stories. When the training roster changed, no one understood why until it was too late. Monday morning arrived cold and indifferent. Kira stepped onto the platform without gloves this time. Let them see her hands. Let them understand. Scars told their own story. Her face still showed Friday. She didn't hide it. She didn't explain it either. Command presence isn't volume. It's inevitability. The evaluation was clean, legal, brutal only in its honesty. Technique exposed bravado. Discipline humiliated aggression. She didn't raise her voice once. Didn't insult anyone. She just demanded standards and recorded who couldn't meet them. Roar failed first, then again and again. Not because she wanted him to, but because he'd never learned what real control felt like. Strength failed him when leverage mattered. Anger failed him when patience was required. Pride failed him everywhere. By the time the circuit ended, the base had shifted. Not dramatically, just enough. the kind of shift that happens when lies begin to collapse under their own weight. He didn't learn from embarrassment, she knew that. That night he asked for a meeting. And she said yes. Because justice doesn't always arrive with sirens. Sometimes it waits quietly under a camera with audio recording enabled. They came late, positioned themselves instinctively, tried to control space the way they always had. She let them speak, let them accuse, let them threaten without saying the word. And when the words crossed into intimidation, when blame turned to coercion, the system finally heard what women had been saying all along. Audio doesn't forget. When the MPs arrived, it wasn't dramatic. No shouting, no resistance, just the sound of cuffs and the collapse of certainty. Kira stood alone afterward, blood dried, tooth aching, notebook full. The investigation moved fast once it had to. Careers stalled, transfers reversed, complaints reopened, patterns exposed, not because someone made a speech, but because someone refused to disappear. Weeks later, she packed the same rucksack. Gray Rock looked smaller as she left. Someone new would arrive eventually, someone quieter, someone watching reflections instead of faces. And maybe this time, the silence would protect them instead of hiding the truth. Because strength doesn't always strike back. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts. Why did the room go silent the moment she stepped back inside? The gym annex still smelled like sweat and rubber mats when Kira Brennan returned alone after the door closed behind the three Marines. Her pulse was steady. That surprised even her. Adrenaline usually lingered after confrontations, buzzing under the skin like static. But this wasn't combat. Not yet. This was something colder, more deliberate. She didn't move for a full 10 seconds. Just stood there under the camera. Let the silence exist. Let the audio feed capture the absence of words as clearly as it had captured the accusations. Then she exhaled, slow, controlled, and picked up her phone from the bench. The recording had run clean. Every word. Every step closer. Every threat wrapped in professional concern. She locked the file, encrypted it, and sent a single message. Evidence secured. No emotion, no commentary. Then she turned off the lights and walked back into the night. The next morning, Camp Gray Rock woke up differently. Not loudly, not with alarms or shouting, just a subtle shift, like animals sensing weather before the clouds arrive. Kira felt it immediately. Eyes didn't slide past her anymore. Conversations paused when she entered rooms. Not hostile, not respectful either, just aware. The kind of awareness that comes when people realize a story they thought they understood is missing key chapters. She moved through the admin building with the same quiet efficiency she always had. Coffee black, no sugar, clipboard tucked under her arm. Her lip had healed enough to stop throbbing constantly, but the cracked tooth still reminded her of Friday every time she spoke. Pain had a way of sharpening memory. At 9:30, her inbox pinged. Mandatory command review, 1100 hours, building 3. No sender name, just a distribution tag. She stared at the screen for a long moment. This was early. Systems like this didn't usually move quickly. Paper stalled. People hesitated. Careers protected themselves. That was how it had worked for the two women before her. Unless someone forced momentum. Unless evidence removed the system's ability to look away. Kira closed the laptop and stood. The conference room was already occupied when she arrived. 3 officers, 1 senior enlisted, a legal liaison seated slightly apart, tablet already open. No one spoke when she entered. No one told her to sit either. So she didn't. She stood at parade rest, eyes forward, posture neutral. The base commander cleared his throat. Chief Brennan, this review concerns allegations of misconduct, improper evaluation practices, and interpersonal conflict. Kira nodded once, Understood, sir. The legal officer leaned forward. Before we proceed, are you represented? I am not, Kira replied calmly. I don't require representation for factual testimony. That caused a flicker of something, surprise maybe, in the officer's eyes. The commander glanced down at a tablet. You filed a medical report Friday night alleging assault. Correct. You then conducted a combat evaluation Monday morning, in which 3 Marines failed multiple stations under your instruction. Correct. And last night, you met privately with those same Marines in the gym annex. Yes, sir. A pause heavy, measured. Why? Kira met his eyes for the first time. They requested the meeting through official channels to contest the evaluation. I agreed to hear their concerns. The legal officer interjected, alone. No, Kira gestured upward, under active surveillance. Silence. The senior enlisted shifted in his chair. You're stating, the commander said slowly, that you anticipated further escalation. I assessed it as likely, Kira replied, based on prior behavior patterns. And you were not concerned for your safety. Kira didn't answer immediately. When she did, her voice was quieter. I was concerned for the integrity of the investigation. That landed harder than she expected. The commander leaned back. We have reviewed preliminary footage. Kira waited. The audio is instructive, he continued, as is the medical documentation, as is your evaluation data. The legal officer tapped the tablet. You never raised your voice. No. You never issued threats. No. You did not initiate physical contact. No. Another pause. Chief Brennan, the commander said, why didn't you defend yourself Friday? The room seemed to shrink. Kira felt it then, the old familiar pressure, the one she'd felt during Hell Week, during after-action reports that reduced chaos to bullet points, during debriefs where survival needed justification. She chose her words carefully. Because defending myself would have ended the investigation, she said, and protecting the investigation mattered more than protecting my pride. No one spoke. Finally, the senior enlisted exhaled slowly. That's a dangerous line to walk, Chief. Yes, Kira agreed, it is. By afternoon, the base was buzzing. Not openly, not officially, but rumors moved faster than memos. The Marines hadn't been seen since morning formation. Their names quietly pulled from rosters, training schedules adjusted without explanation. Kira returned to her barracks and sat on the lower bunk, staring at the wall. For the first time since arriving, the adrenaline faded completely. What replaced it wasn't relief. It was exhaustion. She pressed her fingers into her temples, feeling the ache behind her eyes. 8 years of deployment had taught her how to operate under pressure. It hadn't taught her how to rest afterward. Her notebook lay open on the desk. Names, dates, patterns. 2 women before her, now 3 men. She wondered briefly if it was worth it. Then she remembered the look in Roar's eyes when the laughter stopped. The moment Power realized it wasn't invisible anymore. That evening, Master Chief Mackenzie knocked once and entered without waiting. He took one look at her face and frowned. You look like hell. Feeling better than I look, she said. He pulled a chair close and sat, commands moving fast. They have to, Kira replied. The footage leaves no room. Mackenzie studied her. You knew they'd escalate. Yes. You knew it might turn violent. Yes. You still went alone. Yes. He sighed. That wasn't courage, Brennan, that was calculation. She met his gaze. There's a difference. And you crossed the line between them. Someone had to. Mackenzie leaned back. You ever think about what happens after, once this is over? Kira looked away. I don't plan that far ahead, she said quietly. That's a lie. She smiled faintly. Then I plan not to stay. Mackenzie nodded. Figures. He stood, paused at the door. For what it's worth, you did right. After he left, Kira lay back on the bunk and stared at the ceiling. The base lights hummed softly. Somewhere paperwork was being signed, careers rerouted, stories rewritten. And for the first time since she arrived, she allowed herself one fragile thought. Maybe the system could work if someone refused to look away. Her phone vibrated once on the desk. Case status updated, substantiated. She closed her eyes. Not in triumph, just in quiet, tired relief. Because strength hadn't been loud. It hadn't thrown punches. It hadn't demanded recognition. It had waited. It had endured. And when the moment came, it had spoken with proof. Sometimes dignity doesn't shout. It simply refuses to disappear. Why did the room go so quiet the moment she stepped inside? No announcement, no raised voice, just the subtle shift, the kind you feel more than hear when instinct tells people something has changed. Kira Brennan felt it settle over the gym annex like a held breath. 40 bodies, 40 pulses, 40 sets of eyes trying not to stare at the swelling on her lip, the discoloration under her cheekbone, the tooth she kept hidden behind a careful set of her jaw. Pain pulsed with every step, dull, manageable, constant. She welcomed it. Pain kept her present. Pain reminded her why she hadn't spoken up earlier, why she hadn't corrected the whispers or shut down the jokes. Pain was proof, and proof mattered more than pride. She stopped beneath the lights and let the silence stretch just long enough to become uncomfortable. Somewhere behind her a weight clinked softly. Someone swallowed. Someone else smirked, still not convinced. That was fine. Being underestimated was familiar ground. Pair up, she said calmly. Her voice didn't carry anger. It didn't need to. It carried certainty, the kind that didn't ask for permission. They moved slowly at first, reluctant. She watched them the way she'd watched compounds before breaches, reading posture, tension, micro-movements, who leaned forward, who shifted weight back, who avoided her eyes. She noticed Roar immediately. He stood too loose, too confident, laughing quietly with Grayson like this was all a temporary inconvenience, like she was still a problem that would solve itself. That laugh scraped something old inside her. She remembered being 19, soaked to the bone during Hell Week, shivering so hard her teeth rattled. Remembered the instructor leaning down, voice low, cruel. You don't belong here. She hadn't argued then either. She just kept moving. Station 2, she said, ground control. Groans rippled through the group, not loud, not open, but real. Good. They dropped to the mats. One by one, controlled, professional, she corrected grips, adjusted hips, repositioned frames with light pressure, never humiliating, never rough, just precise. She saved Roar for last. Mount escape, she said, you're on bottom. His jaw tightened. A flicker, just a flicker, of irritation crossed his face. He lay back anyway. The Marine on top settled his weight, heavy, aggressive, doing what he'd always done, pressing forward, relying on mass and force. Begin. Roar exploded. Arms straightened, shoulders surged, pure power, no angles, no patience. Kira watched silently as the effort burned him out in seconds. Stop. He froze, breath already heavy. Reset, she said. You gave up your neck twice, you bridged without framing, you panicked. I almost got out, he snapped. You didn't, she replied evenly. A few heads lifted. She knelt beside him then, slow enough to feel every ache in her ribs. She positioned her hands, showing without touching. This isn't about strength, she said. It's about timing, breath, creating space where none exists. She glanced at his face, met his eyes. You don't force exits, you earn them. Something shifted in the room. She demonstrated with another Marine. Smaller, faster. In under 5 seconds, she slipped free, smooth, efficient, effortless. The contrast was undeniable. Roar stared at the mat. Again, she said. He tried, failed again. By the third attempt, his face was red, not from exertion but from something else, something closer to humiliation. She marked her clipboard. The sound of pen on paper felt louder than it should have. That was when she felt it. The edge. Not physical yet, emotional, the kind that precedes a mistake. She straightened slowly, scanning the room. Some faces looked impressed, others thoughtful. A few dangerous ones looked angry. She'd seen that look in safe houses right before guns came out. This isn't over, it said. She dismissed the group an hour later. Routine, clean, by the book. As they filed out, conversation sparked, low, urgent. Rumors forming in real time. She's legit. Did you see that escape? She's not admin. Kira packed her gear alone, same as always. Mackenzie waited by the door. You poked the hornet's nest, he said quietly. She slung her bag over her shoulder. I didn't poke it, I documented it. He studied her face. You're bleeding again. She touched her lip, looked at the red on her fingers. I know. They walked out together into the sun, heat already rising off the concrete. Roar won't let this go, Mackenzie said. I know. He'll escalate. I know. He stopped her with a hand on her shoulder, firm, protective. You don't have to do this alone. She met his gaze, held it. If I bring backup now, she said softly, he gets to say it was fear, or politics, or favoritism. And if you do? She exhaled, then he shows who he really is. Mackenzie hesitated, then nodded once. I'll be watching. That night Kira sat on her bunk in the dark, lights off, notebook open. She wrote without rushing. Patterns intensifying. Subject displaying loss of control indicators. Confidence degrading under observation. She paused, pen hovering. Her reflection stared back at her from the dark window, bruised, tired, steady. She thought about the 2 women who transferred out, how quiet their files were, how neat, how easy it had been to erase them. She closed the notebook. Her phone vibrated. Unknown number. 2100, Gym Annex, we need to talk. No threats, no insults. Just an assumption. That she'd show up. That she'd be alone. That she'd be reasonable. She typed her reply slowly. Understood. Then she set the phone down and breathed through the ache in her jaw. This was the part no one saw. The waiting. The fear she refused to name. The calculation. The choice between walking away and standing firm. Her heart beat faster, not with dread but clarity. She wasn't here to win a fight. She was here to end a pattern. At 20:45 she wrapped her hands, not for protection but habit. She removed the wraps before leaving them on the desk, left them there deliberately. Empty hands told a story. She stepped into the night alone. The base was quiet, too quiet. When she reached the gym annex, she stopped just outside the door, listened, counted breaths, centered herself. Then she went in. The lights flicked on behind her. Footsteps. 3 of them. The door closed. She didn't turn around right away. Sometimes the strongest thing you can do is wait. Why did the room feel smaller the moment she realized they weren't here to talk? The gym annex door clicked shut behind them, soft but final, and the sound echoed longer than it should have. Kira felt it settle in her chest like pressure before a dive. Not fear, awareness. 3 men, 1 exit, dim lighting. She had planned for this, mapped it, rehearsed it in her head until the sequence felt inevitable. Still, there was that familiar tightening, an old, honest signal from the part of her that knew violence never announced itself cleanly. Roar stood closest now, too close, close enough that she could smell the sour coffee on his breath, see the twitch in his jaw where ego and panic collided. Grayson hovered a step back, pretending neutrality, pretending this was still a conversation. Merritt stayed near the door, eyes darting, already looking for a way out he wouldn't admit he needed. "You're going to retract the report," Roar said. Not a request. A statement he needed to believe was still true. Kira didn't raise her voice. She didn't raise anything. The reports were filed at 1200. They're final. Silence thick, heavy. Roar laughed once, sharp and humorless. "You think paperwork protects you?" The question hung there. It was almost sad, almost. "I think documentation tells the truth," she said. "What people do with that truth is their choice." He stepped closer again. Inside her peripheral vision, Grayson shifted, cutting off a clean lateral path. Merritt swallowed. Kira clocked all of it without moving her head. This was the moment, right before escalation, when people revealed who they really were. "You walked in here thinking you could ruin us," Roar said quietly. "You don't get to do that and just walk away." Something inside Kira tightened, not anger, not fear, disappointment. She had hoped briefly that exposure would be enough. That embarrassment would slow them down. But men like Roar didn't learn from mirrors. They learned from impact. "I didn't come here to ruin you," she said. "I came here to stop you." Roar's hand came out of nowhere, fast. A shove aimed at her shoulder, meant to unbalance, to reassert dominance. It connected, but not the way he expected. Kira stepped with it, not against it, pivoting on the ball of her foot, letting his momentum carry past her center line. Her forearm framed his elbow, redirected, controlled. She didn't strike. She didn't need to. She put him exactly where he put himself, off balance, exposed, surprised. "What the?" Grayson started, moving in. That was the mistake. Kira's body moved before thought finished forming. 2 steps back into space she'd already measured. Her left hand caught Grayson's wrist as he reached. Her right elbow came up, not hard, not flashy, just enough to break rhythm, to make him flinch. She turned, rolled her shoulder under his arm, and let gravity do the rest. Grayson hit the mat with a sound that knocked the air out of him. Merritt froze. Roar recovered faster than Kira would have liked. Adrenaline made him sloppy but aggressive. He swung wide, telegraphed, all strength and no control. She slipped inside the arc, her forearm snapping up to his throat, not crushing, just pinning, her hip sliding in close, her foot hooking behind his ankle. "Stop," she said once, calm, clear. He didn't. She swept. Roar went down hard, the sound echoing off the walls, breath leaving him in a wheeze. She followed him to the mat, controlled, her knee settling across his hip, her weight distributed just enough to keep him pinned without injury. Merritt finally moved, not toward her, toward the door. "Don't," Kira said, without turning her head. He stopped, not because of her tone, but because the camera above them hummed softly, red light blinking. He'd noticed it too late. Roar struggled beneath her, panic replacing fury. "Get off me," he hissed. "You're not in danger," she said, "but you are being recorded." She eased the pressure, stood, took a step back, gave him space. Control wasn't about domination. It was about choice. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Roar laughed again, thin and cracked. "You think this makes you right?" Kira wiped blood from the corner of her mouth where her lip had split again. She tasted copper, familiar, grounding. "No," she said, "it makes the truth visible." Sirens cut through the night, distant, then closer. Military police, on time. Roar's face drained of color. The MPs entered fast, professional, weapons low but ready. One look at the scene. The mats disturbed, Roar on the floor, Grayson sitting up clutching his ribs, Merritt pale and shaking, and then up at the camera. "Chief Brennan," one of them asked. She nodded. "I requested observation only if escalation occurred." Medical. I'm fine. Roar tried to speak. The MP cut him off with a raised hand. Save it. As they were separated, escorted, processed, Kira stood alone under the camera's gaze. Her heart finally started to slow. The crash always came later. Master Chief Mackenzie arrived just after. He didn't speak at first, just looked at her, really looked. The bruising, the blood, the steadiness in her eyes. "You okay?" he asked. She considered the question. Her jaw ached. Her tooth throbbed. Her hands trembled just slightly now that it was over. "Yes," she said, "I am." He nodded. The feed caught everything, audio too. "Good." They stood there in silence for a moment. Then Mackenzie said quietly, "You didn't have to handle it alone." "I needed them to choose," Kira replied. "They did." The investigation moved fast after that. Faster than she'd expected. Faster than the two women before her had been granted. Evidence had a way of accelerating truth when it was undeniable. Statements, footage, medical records, performance reports, patterns drawn in ink and time stamps. Roar was suspended pending court-martial. Grayson reassigned. Merritt transferred, his cooperation noted, his silence broken. The bass shifted. Subtly, people spoke softer around her, looked twice. Respect wasn't loud, but it was there. Late one evening, Kira sat alone on her bunk, notebook open in her lap. The final entry stared back at her, waiting. She hesitated, not because she didn't know what to write, but because writing it meant acknowledging the cost. She wrote anyway. Sometimes strength isn't loud. Sometimes it bleeds quietly, documents patiently, and waits. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak. It simply acts. And this time the system listened. Why did the room feel smaller the moment the door closed? Kira noticed it immediately, not fear, not panic, just a subtle shift. The kind that happens right before gravity reminds you it exists. The gym annex door clicked shut behind the last Marine and the sound echoed longer than it should have. 3 men, 1 woman, cameras overhead. Silence thick enough to lean against. Roar thought silence belonged to him. He stepped closer, boots deliberate on the rubber matting. Too deliberate. Men who believed they were in control always announced it with their feet. "You don't get to rewrite our careers," he said quietly. "You don't get to come in here, take notes, cry to medical, then pretend you're God on the training floor." Kira didn't answer. She felt the ache in her jaw pulse, slow, rhythmic. Her cracked tooth reminded her she was still human. That pain hadn't left yet. It sat with her, lived there, and strangely it grounded her. Roar mistook her silence for hesitation. "That evaluation never gets filed," he continued. "You withdraw it tonight, or this becomes uncomfortable." The word hung there. Uncomfortable. Grayson shifted behind him. Merritt swallowed. Neither of them spoke. They didn't need to. Their bodies said enough, blocking angles, narrowing space, rehearsed intimidation. This wasn't a conversation. It was pressure. Kira finally spoke. "You're standing inside an audio-recorded zone," she said calmly. "You've been in it since you walked through that door." Roar laughed. "No one's listening." Somewhere 2 buildings away, Master Chief Mackenzie leaned forward in his chair and didn't blink. Kira continued, voice steady, almost gentle. "At 17:47 on Friday, you kicked me in the mouth. You fractured a tooth. You knew there were no cameras. You assumed silence meant safety." She took 1 step forward, just one. "And today," she added, "you requested a private meeting off the record to coerce me into altering official evaluation reports. That's obstruction. That's intimidation. That's a career-ending mistake." Roar's jaw tightened. "You think words scare us?" "No," Kira said, "evidence does." She reached for her phone, not fast, not dramatic, and placed it on the bench beside her. Screen up, recording light on, timestamp visible. "I'm not here to fight you," she said. "I'm here to let you finish." Grayson's confidence cracked first. Roar, maybe we should. Roar cut him off with a raised hand. She's bluffing. Kira tilted her head slightly, studying, measuring. I've spent 8 years walking into rooms where people wanted me dead, she said quietly. I learned something useful. She met Roar's eyes. The most dangerous people are the ones who think they've already won. For a second, just one, Roar hesitated. And that was all it took. He lunged. Not a punch, a shove. Hands on her chest meant to dominate space, knock her back, remind her of numbers, strength, force. The same mistake he'd made all week. Kira moved. Not fast, not flashy, efficient. She stepped offline, rotated her hips, trapped his arm as his momentum betrayed him. His weight carried forward. Gravity finished the rest. Roar hit the mat hard. The sound changed everything. Grayson swore. Merritt froze. Kira didn't follow him down. She stayed standing, controlled, dominant without spectacle. Roar scrambled up, rage replacing reason. He swung wide, untrained, angry. She slipped inside the arc, struck once short, precise to the sternum. Not enough to injure, enough to stop breath, enough to teach. Grayson moved in panic, grabbing for her shoulder. She turned, locked his wrist, dropped her weight. He went down with a shout that echoed off concrete. Merritt backed away. I didn't touch you, he stammered. You stayed, Kira said. That counts. She didn't pursue him, didn't need to. Roar tried to rise again. Kira knelt beside him, calm, close enough he could hear her breathe. This is the moment, she said softly, for him alone, where you decide who you are when no one's laughing. Sirens wailed outside. Military police, 30 seconds, just like Mackenzie promised. Roar looked up at her. Something ugly and small finally surfaced in his eyes. You planned this. Yes, she said, because you always escalate. The MPs burst in. Shouts, commands, hands pulling Marines apart. The room flooded with authority and light. Kira stepped back, raised her hands compliant. I was assaulted, she said clearly. Again, the footage and audio will confirm. She didn't look at Roar as he was cuffed. She didn't need to. The investigation didn't move fast. It moved thoroughly. Statements, reviews, footage replayed frame by frame, audio transcribed, medical records aligned with timelines, evaluation reports corroborated patterns, previous complaints resurfaced, 2 women who had left quietly, their words suddenly echoed by evidence too loud to ignore. Roar was removed from duty within 48 hours. Grayson and Merritt followed. Charges came later, careers ended sooner. Kira sat alone in the barracks room the night it became official. The same narrow window, the same maintenance yard lights, the same bunk she'd slept on since day one. She touched her lip gently, healing slowly. Mackenzie knocked once, then entered. They're done, he said. She nodded. You could have crushed them, he added. Physically, you didn't. I didn't need to. He studied her. You okay? She considered the question longer than he expected. I was angry, she admitted. For a while, not because of the tooth, because I knew exactly how this would go, because I've seen it before. And I didn't let it turn me into something loud. Mackenzie smiled just a little. Command wants you to stay, he said. Permanent assignment, training oversight, culture remediation. Kira exhaled slowly. Good, she said. Someone should. When she left Camp Grey Rock 2 weeks later, there was no ceremony. Just a quiet handshake, a nod, a few Marines who didn't look away this time. The base went back to routine. Most places do. But something had shifted. Because silence had finally been answered, not with shouting, not with revenge, but with precision, restraint, and proof. And somewhere, 2 women who'd transferred out saw the report reopen, saw names held accountable, saw that someone had stayed long enough to finish what they started. Kira boarded the unmarked sedan at dawn. As the gate opened, she looked once more at the base behind her. She hadn't come to be feared. She'd come to be undeniable. Sometimes strength doesn't roar. Sometimes it documents. Sometimes it waits. And sometimes it stands up quietly, wipes the blood away, and makes the world listen. Why did the room feel quieter the moment she realized this was the end game? The gym annex smelled like rubber mats and old sweat, but beneath it was something sharper: anticipation, fear, inevitability. Kira Brennan stood exactly where she'd planned, under the soft hum of the upgraded camera, hands loose at her sides, breath even. Her pulse didn't spike. It narrowed, focused, the way it always did before something irrevocable. Roar's words hung in the air, heavy with accusation and entitlement. He was close now, too close. Close enough that she could smell the stale coffee on his breath, see the twitch in his jaw where anger wrestled with uncertainty. "You stop," he finished, voice low, "or this gets worse." Kira held his gaze. She didn't raise her voice, didn't square her shoulders, didn't perform strength. She spoke like someone stating a fact to gravity. "You've already made it worse." Grayson shifted again, closer than he realized. Merritt's eyes darted, not at Kira, but at the door, the corners, the places instinct told him danger lived. He was the only one listening to that instinct. "You think this is a courtroom," Roar said. "You think cameras save you." "I don't need saving," Kira replied. "I need truth." Roar laughed once, short, sharp. He stepped forward and jabbed a finger toward her chest, not touching but close enough to threaten. "You don't walk into a Marine base and rewrite the rules." She nodded slowly, as if conceding something small. "You're right." That pause, barely half a second, was all it took for him to misread her. "You enforce them," she continued, "and you just broke them again." He shoved her. Not hard, not dramatic, enough to test, enough to provoke. The cameras caught it. The audio caught the scrape of her boots as she adjusted, the way she absorbed the force instead of resisting it, the way her hands came up, not clenched, not striking, open, calm. "Do not touch me," she said. Roar sneered. "Or what?" "Or what?" That question echoed deeper than the room. Kira didn't answer it with words. When he reached again, angrier now, impatient, she moved. "Not fast. Precise." She stepped inside his reach, rotated her hips, and redirected his arm the way she taught hundreds of candidates to do. Not a throw. Not yet. Just control. His momentum betrayed him. His balance shifted. Grayson lunged, reacting on instinct rather than thought. That was his mistake. Kira released Roar and pivoted, using Grayson's forward motion. One hand on his wrist, the other on his tricep, she turned and dropped her weight. He hit the mat hard, breath exploding out of him in a startled grunt. Merritt froze. Roar recovered faster than expected. Anger erased hesitation. He charged. This time she didn't redirect. She struck. A short elbow, clean, controlled, not aimed to break but to stop. He staggered back, shock flashing across his face where confidence had lived seconds earlier. "Back away," she ordered. Her voice wasn't loud. It didn't need to be. Merritt took a step back immediately. Roar didn't. He swung. Kira blocked, trapped his arm, and swept his legs in one smooth motion. He hit the mat beside Grayson, hard enough to rattle teeth but not enough to cause lasting damage. She followed him down, knee pinning his shoulder, pressure exact. Surgical. "Do you understand now?" she asked quietly, close enough that only he could hear. His answer came out ragged, furious, afraid. "You set us up." "No," she said, "I let you be yourselves." Grayson groaned, trying to push up. She shifted her weight without looking, and he went still again, stunned by how little effort it took. Merritt raised his hands. "Chief, stop, please, this is over." Kira looked at him then, really looked. "You could have stopped it Friday," she said. "You could have stopped it Monday. You could have stopped it 10 minutes ago." He swallowed. "I know. That, more than anything, broke something open in the room." She released Roar and stood, stepping back into the center of the camera's gaze. She didn't chase, didn't threaten, she simply waited. Sirens cut through the night less than 30 seconds later. Military police flooded the annex. Weapons low, commands sharp, controlled. They separated the men, cuffed them, assessed injuries. Roar shouted. Grayson cursed. Merritt said nothing. Master Chief Mackenzie arrived last. He took one look at Kira, steady, breathing controlled, knuckles barely reddened. Then at the footage already playing on a monitor an MP had pulled up. He didn't smile. He nodded. The investigation moved fast after that, faster than anyone expected, faster than the rumors could keep up. Video, audio, medical reports, training evaluations, witness statements, a pattern so clear it couldn't be buried without taking half the base with it. Roar was charged, Grayson too. Merritt cooperated, names surfaced, complaints reopened, transfers reversed, careers paused, some ended. Kira testified once, calm, factual, unemotional. She didn't talk about courage, or equality, or proving herself. She talked about procedures, about standards, about what happens when silence is mistaken for permission. On her last morning at Camp Grey Rock, she packed the same faded rucksack she'd arrived with. The notebook was thicker now, heavier, full. As she walked toward the gate, a young female Marine stood at attention, uncertain. "Chief," she asked. Kira stopped. "They told me you're the reason I don't have to leave," the Marine said quietly. Kira studied her for a moment, saw the tension, the hope, the fear of being seen. "I didn't do anything alone," she said. "You stayed." The Marine nodded, eyes bright. The sedan rolled out through the checkpoint. The guard barely glanced up this time. As the base disappeared behind her, Kira rested her head against the window, exhaustion finally seeping in. Her tooth still ached. Her lip would scar. She didn't mind. Some scars closed wounds, others opened doors. Sometimes strength doesn't roar. Sometimes it documents, waits, and acts. And sometimes dignity doesn't speak at all. It simply endures, until the truth can no longer be ignored.